In life's journey, we must seek to reflect, learn, and grow. Welcome to the Road to Rediscovery with your host, Aubrey Johnson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson, and I'm so thrilled to have you here with me. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life's lessons to learn and grow, and reaching out to help others who are struggling through dark times. My special guest is a professional mediator and arbitrator. After an extensive career in education, she's forged a hard road of rediscovering and redefining herself. She now helps others in reaching resolutions to their disputes. As you all know, I usually say we're going to learn more about her, ... But today I'm going to say you are going to learn more about her journeys, her challenges, her triumphs. You see, I already know about her. For she is my one and only sweetie sugar, also known as my dear, dear wife, Mrs. Sherry Johnson. Hi, honey.
Hi, babe. How are you?
I'm great. It's so great to finally have you on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. So let's start by sharing some background with the listeners, where you're from and so forth.
I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. I went to the University of Cincinnati, and I went to Wright State for my graduate work, which is in Dayton, Ohio. As you know, we have a beautiful daughter and a beautiful son, and we've now moved to Texas, and our daughter and son are far behind in Cincinnati and Lexington at this time. So
yeah. And, you know, as you were talking about attending the University of Cincinnati and then getting into education, I have some very fond memories of helping you move office furniture into your classrooms and offices, in the summer before school started, and then moving some out at the end of the school year.
yeah, and visiting on recess.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was always fun. Seeing you in action, without causing much disruption. But man, that's awesome.
I was back in my teaching days.
Yeah. Oh, those were good days. Those were fun to watch you. So you mentioned before about Amber and Zach, back in Kentucky, back in Cincinnati.
Yes.
And after we've made a move. So let's talk about that. I like to refer to it as like a shift, because it was a shift at so many levels, right? It was about a shift of leaving my job of 21 years to start a new job. And then later we had to make this move to where we are now. And explain how that was for you.
Well, I'll say it was very strange. I was an educator for 22 years in Cincinnati. I was a teacher, a consulting teacher, and where I mentored and evaluated teachers, and then an assistant principal for 9 years. And when we moved to Texas, I didn't know anyone here. I didn't, a lot of getting a job has to do with who you know.
Right.
And, I was very concerned. And my first 3 months in Texas, I was here by myself. And you still had to work in Cincinnati for 3 months. So this was the house I really wanted, and it was worth it to me. And I really did really well with that part. I got to know my neighbors right away, and the people here are so friendly and kind. They let me know, hey, if you need anything, I'm here, there's, my husband can do this and that's for you while your husband's not here. And, people just really made me feel more secure being here by myself. And, but it didn't get me anywhere with a job. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, I was just so proud and impressed with you those first 3 months, even leading up to moving into the house. I truly was and still am impressed and proud of you, because, even though both of us are from Cincinnati, our backgrounds are quite different.
Yeah.
You know, me coming from a military family, moving around, living in different places, you being born and raised in Cincinnati, not living anywhere else.
And no, always living probably within 10 minutes of the house I grew up in.
Right, within 10 minutes of your childhood home.
Yes, always.
You know,
yes.
So when I say shift, to me, this was definitely a shift.
It was a big shift for sure.
Yeah, and you know, the pride and how impressed I was with you then and still am now. It was again on so many levels, right? To see you working to connect with people in the neighborhood, to connect with people in this small town, you know, in North Dallas. Even in education, as you started to make those strides. But at the same time, I was sad. I was sad because, you know, knowing you had an inner struggle with even deciding if education was what you wanted to continue. This was almost like a new chapter, right?
Yes, yeah. When I was in Cincinnati, I was starting to feel like, you know, I feel like I've done what I wanted to do in education.
Right.
I do really enjoy being an assistant principal, and I love, you know, helping the children and the families. But I was really feeling like it was time to move to something different. You know, I'm one of those girls who like change.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
When I read that Move My Cheese book, I just thought it was hilarious because who moved my cheese? I'm like, it's great to have your cheese moved. What are you talking about?
Right.
So, I was already thinking that way. And then when I moved here, of course, I wasn't working at all.
Right.
And so, even while you were out of town, the only way to get in, you know, you say North Dallas, people think, you know, you're in the big town or that kind of thing, but we're not. We're in the country, basically, and with some small towns around. So the only way, I mean, I applied. Nobody was even looking at me for an assistant principal job, anything like that. So I thought, well, you know, I have time. Why not just sub and get to know which of these districts around here I like?
Right.
So I started subbing in a couple of these small town districts out here. And I even long-term sub for a whole year. But it just wasn't what I really wanted to do.
Right.
And I spent time looking like on the internet just at careers and just a list of careers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, what do I want to get into? I could go to school. I could, you know, do something totally different. And nothing was speaking to me. I didn't see any careers that I liked. I'm like, maybe I'll just be staying home. But I'm too young to really stay home all the time. So yeah, it's been very difficult.
Wow.
That way, yes.
Yeah, well, thank you for painting that picture for the listeners because I want them to really, really embrace and have a true vision of what you were going through, how you were feeling, all of the different efforts and all of the different actions that you were taking to continue in education while at the same time battling with this internal struggle of deciding if that's even what you wanted to continue, right? And all of that coupled with being in a completely new place, that's a lot to deal with. That is a major inner struggle that's not easy to adjust by any means. So that was around the 2015, 2016 time frame.
Right.
Okay. And so now if we fast forward to 2019, 2020, right? Are you still in education? And if so, what capacity would you be in?
I am still in education in that I work very part-time for a local community college where I really enjoy what I do. I work in the writing center. You know, I love writing and I get to work with students on maybe any kind of writing they're doing. So they can come in with a finished paper and I'll go over it with them and edit it and, you know, help maybe do some mini lessons, teaching them, things I can tell they don't know about in writing. They might not know how to get started. I might start doing an outline with them.
Okay.
Just wherever they are in their writing, being able to help them with that. And it's great fun. Of course, since COVID, we've been online and doing Zoom and that type of thing, and the hours have gotten really low. Where, I'm not working much at all. And so during this time, I was working with one of my partners from work. We were doing a little side work, doing a plagiarism project for our boss. And we were working and talking, and something came up where she brought up mediation. And I was like, she looked at me and she said, "You would be a great mediator, Sherry." And I thought, yeah, I would. I've done a lot of mediation for my whole career. It's helping children solve their disputes, helping parents solve their disputes with teachers, helping teachers solve disputes among teachers. It's just a strength that I've always had.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I'm really interested in that. So I looked into it, and I took the mediation classes necessary this summer from Manusa Mediation in Houston.
Right.
So I am certified to mediate anywhere in the world and arbitrate. And that is a really exciting, different world that, I'm still working to really get into.
Sure.
But so rewarding, and just it fits me very well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And one thing I was wondering in particular, as you were considering this after your coworker mentioned how good of a mediator you would be, how far of a stretch from where you came from in your career in education did you think it would be to be a mediator? Was it a far stretch, or were there some similarities in being an administrator where, some degree of mediation was practiced in that role that could easily transfer you over to the mediation world?
Absolutely. It was more of a close tie.
Good.
Because personally, me, I'm what you call a transformative mediator. So sometimes people go to mediation and the mediator goes where a party's in one room, a party's in a different room. That's not transformative mediation.
Okay.
Transformative mediation uses skills that, I've had forever, like active listening, that type of thing, and where you're just more of you're facilitating a conversation between two people. They stay in the room the entire time.
Okay.
They, just like I always did with students and parents,
Right.
We work it out, and everybody feels good about the process. So that is very in line with what I do. I mean, there's a very specific way you do that and very specific things you learn to do. But yeah, wasn't a stretch. Not at all. Not a far stretch at all. No.
No, that's great. So you kind of trickled into just some of the roles and the elements of a mediator and a meeting of opposing sides in mediation. But can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit? Add to it as far as what is the main purpose of a mediator, right? Just for the listeners' benefit, what is a mediator and what is the ultimate purpose of that mediator and what they do?
So with transformative mediation, the mediator is going to serve, I'm going to serve as a facilitator for conversation.
Okay.
There's a structure I follow. People come into mediation very nervous.
Yeah.
Depending on if it's a civil case, a family case, a divorce case, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's a very, it's very nerve-wracking. And so I put myself in their shoes and get it going with, by being calm and
very empathetic.
Getting everybody to try to feel comfortable.
Right.
Because the more comfortable you are, the more honest and frank you're going to be about what are your needs, and being able to put forth, things you want to say, things that maybe you felt like you were never heard in a marriage.
Right.
And being able to do all that, but you have to feel like it's safe to do that.
Right.
Right now, mediations are on Zoom, online. And I think that works really well for mediations. But of course, in person, I'm looking forward to when that comes back too, because I'll be able. I have a lot of skill with creating rapport and creating environments where people, children, adults, everybody feels comfortable to have discussions.
Exactly, and I would think as a mediator, having such a session in person, physically with other people, and you're facilitating these, there's a lot of nonverbals on both sides that you would need to pick up on to determine whether or not both sides are comfortable in explaining or stating their cases of what they want the outcome to be, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But also on Zoom, it doesn't lack too much of that. Because you can see each other, and I can see how I can still see body language and tone of voice. So not a lot is lost in Zoom mediations. It goes really well.
One thing I wanted to mention real quick, I'm going to just take a slight step back, honey.
Okay.
And just send a big shout out to Grayson College.
Yay, Grayson. Yes.
And shout out to Manuso Mediation. Big shout out to those guys. And by the way, thank you for inviting me to the Christmas party at Grayson College last year, because, man, the food was great. And the people you work with, I think that was the first time I met them.
Yes.
Just so nice, so lovely. And
nice people.
Yeah, very pleasant.
Yes.
Very pleasant.
It's a very nice, small campus. You get to know people. It's a nice place to be.
Oh, that's beautiful. So when it comes to mediation, can you share with the listeners, what does it have to offer a person going through a dispute that, say, the traditional court litigation type environment doesn't? Okay.
Well, to be quite frank, one reason why people really like mediation is because it is legally binding. The agreement that the parties come up with, not the courts, not me, the parties come up with the solution to the problem through a lot of work. They're in mediation. It's legally binding, and so you can have a lawyer then paper the case, it's called, turn that into the court.
Okay.
And that will be just as though you went through the expense of paying lots of lawyers and, to go through the whole process in court, except you had control over the solution yourself. Now, having said that, I'd like to say that, lawyers are wonderful people. A lot of my colleagues are lawyers. Many lawyers take the training and become mediators. And whoever comes to mediation is always, of course, they always have a right to an attorney. So I don't want to make it sound like there's never attorneys at mediation, because there are attorneys at mediation if that's what the parties choose to do. You can choose to come pro se, which means you're not represented, or you can choose to go to mediation with a lawyer. So either way, you can still have mediation with or without attorneys. So I think it's beneficial financially. It's beneficial as far as privacy goes. When you're in a courtroom, all of that is public information, everything that goes on in the case. With mediation, everything said during mediation is private between, let's say, somebody from your work that was unhappy with the company, and it was a civil mediation between them, and I was there. No, we cannot talk about it. We cannot share it with anyone. We can't put it on social media. And there's an agreement that you sign to that. So when you go to court, a lot of things are public. And, if I were, say, getting a divorce and I had, if I earned a lot of money, you might not want everybody to know how much money you have. And, that can create, in today's world, create a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So mediation is very private. Even the courts do not know what was discussed in mediation. They just get the settlement agreement.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So a lot of people like it for the privacy. And then they also like that, the court is not deciding their fate,
Right.
that they are deciding their fate.
Right.
And couples with children, who can, work together still, which anybody can.
Right.
If they're with me, they certainly can.
Sure.
And, and decide how the custody is going to go with the children, where they're going to be when. That's a much better schedule than what you're going to get from the courts.
Oh, for sure. And to me, that's another beautiful thing, right? Because the privacy, like you said, huge advantage. A lot of people don't want that dirty laundry out there public for everyone to access. And number two is just the fact that you're not, as a mediator, playing a part in the decision.
No.
You're facilitating the conversation so that both parties reach a compromise or an agreement, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So that leaves both sides feeling like they have a sense of accomplishment.
Exactly.
That their voice was heard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they're like architects constructing their own solution. When the case is finished, regardless of the situation, depending on what it is, it can be very sad for people. Everyone feels like they had the opportunity to speak, to be heard, to be one of the people who developed that final settlement that can go on to the courts.
That's awesome. Now, honey, I know because of, our time together, you are truly a very empathetic person.
Yes.
You really are. Mm-hmm. And so I would love if you could paint a picture again for the listeners, okay, in describing, as a mediator, what does a mediator do, or what do you do to just make sure that both sides know that they are in a safe place? There's no need to have anxiety or worry. They're already worried, like you said earlier,
Yes.
right? I mean, the topic that they're disputing obviously is a sensitive spot. It hits a nerve, right? Mm-hmm. But you have to create that environment of safety, that environment of security, right? Just knowing that it's okay that for them to say these things and say what they want in this space. How do you create such an environment like that to where they feel safe?
Well,
and listened to and heard. Yes.
Well, I start out the mediation by giving ground rules. Mm-hmm. And within those ground rules, they are assured that I'm not going to say anything that's repeated there. Mm-hmm. And, I recommend that, if they take any notes, that they tear them up. I would do the same thing. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tear up anything like that.
Right.
But I don't really need to take notes. Typically, I am going to be listening. Yes. And when I hear, or maybe I can see with body language, that someone, you can kind of tell when, somebody has something to say and they're not saying it.
Right.
There are words I can use to help them understand that,
it's okay.
We want to hear them.
Yeah.
The first thing we do in mediation is one party tells what brought them there and what they hope to get out of it. Mm-hmm. And the other party, no interruptions. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the other side gets to tell why they're there and what they hope to get out of the mediation. Mm-hmm. And it's a time where they're listening to each other in a different way than they've listened before.
Gotcha.
And so having someone listen to you like that you thought was never listening to you before is very empowering. Mm-hmm. And then there's a time where, I'm going to give them time to ask each other questions, to have a discussion.
Right.
Now, there is something called a caucus in mediation. Now, caucuses aren't used that often, but if I need to caucus, not in transformative mediation, they're not used that often.
Okay.
But if I see someone isn't saying something they need to say,
right,
I'm going to call for a caucus.
Okay.
So that means we stop what we're doing. I go with the other person in Zoom. I go into a different Zoom room.
Right.
In person, you would go into a different room and talk to them and let them know, I'm feeling like there's something you want to say. Is there something, you feel like you can't say here?
Right.
And when they say, I just can't say it, though. I just can't say it. I say, I will tell them, yes, you can. You can say that. And I want you to say it to me right now. And so I have them practice.
Gotcha.
Saying it out loud.
Gotcha.
So that when they go back in, if it's something they feel like they need to say, I'm not telling them to say that.
No.
But I'm telling them, if they feel like they need to say it, it needs to be said.
Right. Right.
And so helping build their esteem. Now, if I caucus with one person, I keep close track of the time.
Yep.
I then caucus with the other person for the same amount of time.
Same amount. Okay.
Because once you leave the room with somebody, it makes it look like you're more on their side.
Right. Biased.
And there's no bias in mediation.
Good.
And I'm certainly not biased at all. But then I'm going to take the other side and talk to them for the same amount of time.
Gotcha.
The most important thing is that they feel like I am on both of their sides. I tell them at the beginning, I'm on your side and I'm on your side. I want you both to be successful in constructing a solution to this issue.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And that's a tremendous skill. And it's not just a skill, but it has to be part of your persona, right? It has to be part of who you are. Personality-wise, that makes you a good mediator, right? Like you said earlier, you're not biased, in general at all.
No.
As far as being a person, I know you're not biased,
Right?
Right. So that just transfers quite nicely to the mediation space and the role that you play. And to me, the skill part is there's something you have to bring to this conversation as a facilitator that wasn't seen when the two sides were going before meeting you, right? There's something you have to bring in that makes, say, side A realize something that side B was trying to communicate that side A didn't see when they were disputing before coming to you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's a tremendous skill.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has to do with a lot of like open questions.
Right.
Asking one side something, asking the other side something, maybe asking for clarification about something, where they can then start, especially once you get into it, once the nerves are down and they're like really trying to decide, what's our solution going to be, they start hearing more.
Right.
Because they do want to come to a solution, or they wouldn't have gone to mediation. I mean, anyone who doesn't think they could possibly come to a solution, they might not be right, and they might be right. It depends on the situation.
Right.
But there's just no reason to go to the courts. I mean, it takes forever to get anything through the courts now.
Sure.
And for divorces, they're automatically, here in Texas, sending them to mediation.
Are they?
Yeah. So the first thing they're going to do anyway is go to mediation.
I see.
So what if they could solve, there's basically two things you have to take care of in a divorce: the money situation and the children, if you have children.
Gotcha.
And, what if you could just solve that, and pay a lawyer to just paper a case, as it's called, get it filed in the courts, and that's it.
I got you.
You can save a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, you can go to mediation before you ever decide to do anything with court.
Right.
Two neighbors that have a dispute, they could go to mediation. There's no sense bringing things into the court.
Right.
I think, a lot of these situations, your feelings are hurt.
Yeah.
And you can have a private setting to deal with that. People cry a lot. There's
Sure.
nothing wrong with crying when your feelings are hurt.
Right.
We're going to move forward.
Yep.
But it's okay that your feelings are hurt.
Right.
I mean, I personally wouldn't want to stay in the courtroom and cry.
No.
And,
No.
and it's
There's
all...
a lot of people in there.
and they're recording, and this person was crying,
Yeah.
It's all being recorded, and I don't know. I would prefer mediation myself.
Gotcha. And that makes a lot of sense because, and again, not to diminish courts or anything, there's a purpose for that depending on what the circumstances are. But I don't know, to some degree in courts, it's almost like your fate rests on
exactly
different people.
Yeah, why not develop your own solution?
Exactly.
Why not construct that
right.
yourselves?
Yeah, make your own fate, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
By having a conversation and so forth. So,
yeah, that's what really drew me to it.
Gotcha.
I think that's exciting, and I think saving people money is very exciting to me.
Of course.
Yeah. But not having to have all your business put out there, I think is really awesome and cool. And that there's an option like that in the world that a lot of people just don't know about.
Wouldn't you think celebrities would visit mediators for their disputes?
Well, I bet. I bet they know about them.
Because it would be private, right? I mean, we hear about stuff all on the news about celebrities and their things. So
but in mediation, totally private.
That's awesome.
Totally private.
That's awesome. And just so everyone knows, once again, I know you said this earlier, honey, you can practice mediation all over the world?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. All over the world. And you're not restricted to North Dallas because we live here.
Absolutely not.
All right. That's beautiful.
Yes.
Also, in the areas that you cover, civil, family, domestic?
I mediate civil cases, which are typically involving business to business or business to consumer disputes. I also mediate family and divorce cases. Sometimes parties may need to rework their child custody, and we can do that together as well. I mediate juvenile cases also, but my specialty is in the education realm. Typically, there are cases around special needs students, and I mediate those cases. Special education law is a federal law in the United States, so I'm an expert in that area. Not only am I a certified teacher and special education teacher, but I have served in these capacities, and I have put that law into action as a teacher and an administrator through my 24 years of experience and practice in education.
Nice. Very nice. And so for our listeners who are in a dispute, or anyone they know who are in a dispute and they want to reach a resolution, how can they contact you and learn more about the great work you're doing in mediation?
They can reach me at Sherry, which is SHERRY, at samepagomediation.net.
Awesome. And I know I'm still on the hook for launching that website.
Yeah, sure. I would have given the website address, but we're close.
Yeah, we are close. And it doesn't stray too far from the email address. It will be samepagomediation.net. So it's www.samepagomediation.net.
Thank you, honey.
Oh, you're welcome, honey. Oh, sweetie, it's been so great having this conversation about you. I've learned some additional stuff. And, outside of just all of the hard work I've seen you doing in reaching your certification a while back, I've heard just in passing as I'm going from one room to another, just things that you're learning, and that was quite a bit. But I've learned even more in this conversation because we've been so focused on this. So I really want to thank you for opening up and sharing that with us.
Well, it's no problem at all. I've really enjoyed it, honey. And if you need me for anything else, I'm here for you.
I know. Yes, I do. Oh, that is so awesome. So now we're going to go into a segment called Three for the Road. And for the listeners, my wife is not exempt from that. Every guest goes through three for the road. And
golly gee, honey.
Golly gee willikers. So just a quick review, honey, about Three for the Road. It's where I ask my guests 3 questions that are random yet thought-provoking that I challenge my guests to answer in 5 words or less. Now, no penalties if you go over 5.
I'm a big talker, so.
Yeah, as are I. No penalties if it goes over 5.
Okay.
But if you get on a vibe, we just let you go. All right? Think you're up for it?
I'll give it a whirl.
All right, let's go. All right, number 1. Number one, and by the way, I customize my 3 for the road questions specifically for my guests. So no guests get the same questions.
Does that mean you made mine very hard?
I made yours very sherry.
Okay. I can do sherry.
Okay. All right, so here we go. Number one for 3 for the road.
Okay.
You have to spend a month on an island. You are given all of the tools for gardening crops for food.
Oh, good.
But can only choose 3 kinds, 3 vegetables. What would they be?
Can I ask a question back?
Sure.
Where's this island at? Because I need to know what'll grow there.
Okay.
Let's just assume, right?
All right. Let's say the Caribbean.
The Caribbean. Gosh, I don't even really know what grows in the Caribbean. Okay. I am going to say, because it depends on the time of year and everything with gardening.
Right.
I am going to go for watermelon because they'll give me a lot of food. And, I only have a month, though. I'm only there for a month. So the food's got to turn around that fast. Okay, I'm going to go for lettuce greens.
Okay.
And, keep them in the shade because it'll be might be hot there for them.
Right.
But it could be the right time of year. I'm going to say, what else can I get a quick turnaround on? Some small peppers. I could get a pretty quick turnaround. They'd be good with my salad. And then get a quick turnaround on, I think, some squash because I get a quick turnaround on that and it's a lot of food.
Nice. So it'll keep you content or full, not starving for the duration.
Yeah, I think I can pull that off.
Okay, so lettuce greens, peppers, squash.
Yeah. But
okay. No, that's cool. That's awesome.
They might not get done all the way in a month. But
yeah, a month is a lot to ask for something to turn around like that for gardening now that I've learned.
Yes, you've been doing a great job.
Oh,
great job. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm just, again, learning secondhand from being around.
He calls himself the grunt.
Yeah, I'm the grunt. I lift the bags of dirt. I move the containers. My wife
does a great job.
She has all the science. She has all the art. She has the vision behind the gardening. I just want to help her make it happen. All right, number 2 for 3 for the road. With any type of work you've done on any project or any task or assignment, okay, with anything.
Okay.
How do you know that you've done a good job?
I know that I've done a good job when the task or assignment is complete. When everybody involved in that work has been involved in the process and that everybody's happy with the process and, how we went through it and how things happen.
That's great. Now, number three is a fill in the blank. Okay.
Okay.
Conflict resolution has taught me that
any problem has a solution. Any and every problem has a solution.
Nice.
Yeah. If people are willing to work together. I went over 5. Boy, that was good with the 5 words on that one. I forgot the 5-word rule already.
That's okay because you get into a groove, right?
Yeah.
And that's the intent.
Yeah. As long as people are committed to the process.
Yeah.
And there's a solution.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, honey, guess what? We did it.
Yay!
We did it. Yay. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you, honey.
And I hope we can have a sequel down the line and, just give the listeners an update of what's going on.
Sure.
Down the line. Sweet. And a big thanks to all of you for tuning in and listening. If you would like to be among the first to have a glimpse into upcoming episodes and guests before the episode release, make sure you subscribe to the Road to Rediscovery mailing list at road2rediscovery.com. That's road2rediscovery.com. Just click the contact link at the top and then enter your email address. That is it. Also, I'm always looking for your feedback, so please feel free to share that as well. Well, guys, we're all roadies on this journey of life, and it sure feels good having you alongside with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon.